So here we go. Pink gin, ice, cranberry juice, and a blunt. This must be Newshound. So today I am going to have my maybe sixth gin of the day, though it's been stretched out over the day with a lot of food in between and stuff, but I've been enjoying the gin today. I decided to take a day to relax, and I didn't do any relaxing at all. So what can you do about it? Um, but I've been waiting to do this news hand. I've been prepping it for a couple of days, and I've been thinking about it for a couple of days because it's very interesting. I like to go two places. I like to sniff around. So there's a beginning and an end with Newshound, an article you find and a place it leads you, and they don't always connect. You'll start off going down a route and you think you know what you're gonna find and you know what you're gonna come across, but it never turns out that way, does it? No, no, no. And that's what Newshound does, and then something else comes up, something of interest, which is of worth noting. You can tell I've had six gins. I'm not going to hide it. But I think I prepped this enough that we can go through this and come out the other side with a little bit more knowledge than we had before. And so, what's this subject going to be about? Well, we're going to start off looking in the British newspaper archive, and we're going to go as early as we can back to the first mention of Klaus Schwab. For those who know me, what have been described as some of my seminal pieces, I'm never sure about that word, on Klaus Schwab's backstory. 1874. Jakob Gottfried Wilhelm Gottfried Schwab, his grandfather. 1898, Eugen Schwab, his father. He would go work for a model Nazi company called Escher Weiss and would help the uh, German Nazis to try and gain the atomic bomb by making large uh, turbines, hard water turbines, massive hard water, enormous. And then, of course, that didn't work out well for the Nazis. And eventually in 1964, Schwab's father, Eugen, would tell young Klaus Schwab, listen, you're doing well and everything, but go to Harvard and study under Kissinger. That's the only route for you. And at the time, Kissinger was doing something called Kissinger's International Seminar, which was originally set up with William Yandell Elliott, and was kind of like a early version, really, as a parts of the government school of government in Harvard at this period and their summer school were reminiscent, if not early template for the World Economic Forum events and what happens in Davos. And Kissinger's international seminar was very much the young global leaders, the World Economic Forum's young global leaders, a precursor to that. And guess who went through in Kissinger's international seminar? Well, Klaus Schwab, creator of the Young Global Leaders program. So, I mean, you can see how that train goes. It's all connected. Um, and so in 1967, Klaus Schwab leaves Kissinger's international seminar and he goes back to his father's old model Nazi company, who are trying to reframe themselves and get rid of the bad name. There's things that are coming from the past. Both companies who would do the main parts of the mergers of this merger I'm talking about that started in 1967 when Klaus Schwab left. Uh, the Kissinger's International Seminar. Both these companies were mired with history, negative history of working with the Nazis. But Escher Weiss more so. I mean, that was they were working on the atomic bomb project. That's pretty heavy. And so Klaus Schwab would be phoned up by Peter Schmidt-Heine, who was the son of Colonel Jacob Schmidt-Heine, who was aligned with Klaus Schwab's father. He was like the CEO of Edelweiss, and Klaus Schwab's father was the manager of the Ravensburg factory. And later on, Peter Schmidt-Heine is like chairman of the board or whatever. His father was the same. And Klaus Schwab is invited in 1967 to make the merger a success. And during that merger, while Klaus Schwab's there, second in command, the company's selling nuclear technology to the apartheid South African regime, um, when it was illegal to do so in their nuclear bomb project, which they never managed to get the nuke, but they surely did try, and it was illegal at the time. And the Swiss and Sulzer AG, and at the time it was Sulzer Esser Weiss, it was just in between. You had Escher Weiss and Schulze, and then you had Schulze Escher Weiss, and then you had just Schulze AG, they called it afterwards, about 1971, I think they called it just Schulze AG. And so Klaus Schwab did exactly kind of what his father did. So I'm giving you a time frame here. I'm not just telling you the articles that I've researched and written in the past, even though it is extremely useful to know this knowledge. I'm telling you this knowledge for a reason, because we're going to look at the first appearance of Klaus Schwab within the British newspaper archive, which I think is a really I couldn't find anywhere to to wedge it into the articles. I wanted to, but it would have made a couple of paragraphs that possibly were out of sync with how the tale, the easiest way to tell the tale, that someone would be able to understand what's going on in like an order, in it kind of broke it up. So I wasn't able to use it, which was really strange, because it was the first appearance of Klaus Schwab, first evidence of Klaus Schwab, being this businessman, this new businessman. But the first mention really of him anywhere at all, especially in the Western press. And this mention would see him mentioned in British newspapers and American newspapers. But we're going to start off with the British newspaper, even though one of the American newspapers actually printed roughly the same article the day before this English newspaper did. That might have, I think these things get sent out like things like by people like Associated Press and stuff, and they get picked up. I don't know how it happened in the past. This is 1970. So this is the moment where Herman Kahn and John Kenneth Galbraith are coming with Otto von Habsburg to get people on board, to convince business leaders to start this World Economic Forum in Davos, which will originally be called the European Management Symposium. And the first event will be in January 1971. So this is August 1970. This is 5 months before the first one. Now, the British version doesn't mention the Davos event, but the American versions do, because the American versions of the articles have a couple of additions that possibly you could say are more relevant to an American audience rather than to a British audience. Well, this is all very interesting if you're interested in this stuff. If you're not, turn off. I can't help you. I'm not here to entertain people all across the spectrum. I'm just here to talk about Klaus Schwab. This article has been disappeared from the past, really. It's but it's a piece of history. This guy's one of the most influential people in history, and so we need to understand what that means. So let us please welcome to Newshound. We are here in a Coventry Evening Telegraph, the lunchtime edition. How exciting is that? A lunchtime edition of an evening newspaper. Well, the Coventry Evening Telegraph, as we'll see later, will eventually be called in 2008 just the Coventry Telegraph. But it was one of those things where it was called something else. I think it was like the South Birmingham Post or something originally, and then became the Coventry Evening Telegraph in the 20s or the 30s, and then just stayed there. And even at that lunchtime edition, it didn't change. But this is number 24,610. You will pay 6D. That's pennies, old pennies, massive round pennies, British pennies that were the size of a pair of if you had two of them, you could have a pair of those Chinese style, sort of Asian style sunglasses or glasses, and round ones. They were enormous, enormous pennies, enough to cover the eyes for sure. And that's what pennies used to be used for. But back in those days, you had 6 enormous pennies, and you would buy yourself a Coventry Evening Telegraph. And this was from Thursday, August the 27th, 1970. So this is the front cover of the newspaper. It's not on the front page, is the article that we want to look at. But we're going to go through that article now, and then we're going to go through some other stuff. And it could get interesting, or you could be bored to death. FOs. Let's see. Let's find out. Welcome to Newshound, where we'll hound around, because that's what we do on Newshound. So, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully my computer will be nice and speedy, or speedy enough, you could say. As I said, this article will come in 3 different types. We're going to look at the British one first. So we're going to look at the one that was in the Coventry Evening Telegraph, and then we're going to look at the differences. They're all titled something different, slightly different. This one and another one in the Amarillo Post, I think it is, are titled roughly the same, but another one's titled much different, and they are extras in the American newspapers. So it's interesting to see how they compare at the time. So, computer threat to privacy. Now, there's a lot to unpack in these as well. This is very exciting. So, straight away, they're telling you about the basis of the article: computer threat to privacy. But when we analyze this next bit now, it'll be hard to understand who's threatening, and who's the bad guy in this. Because I think it's the bad guy speaking, Right, so Geneva, Thursday. A leading school of business management has expressed concern over the threat by computers to private lives. So it says straight away they've expressed concern. So they're the ones raising the concerns, you would think. Professional wiretapping has passed its heyday, but privacy remains threatened by computers of government and business, the International Management Development Institute said in its statement. Now, here we go. Professional wiretapping has passed its heyday. This was at the heyday of professional wiretapping. However much they say that, it is such a oddball start to a piece there, because in actual fact, a couple of years after this, only a few years after this, you've got Watergate happening, which was marking the heyday of wiretapping, and wiretapping didn't stop for many years. Lots of people know that it was still going. It kind of still goes on today. So professional wiretapping has passed its heyday is one hell of a overreach. But privacy remains threatened by computers of government and business. Now, this is the International Management Development Institute. So this is a development institute that's part founded by government and part by business. So they're saying if privacy remains threatened by our computers, really, by computers of the people we're in league with. So who's expressing concern? And who are the International Management Development Institute, which we'll have a look at very soon. It's very interesting now. Let's go on a little bit. The Institute added that the question of how much of people's private lives should ethically be computerized would be one of the main topics at the first European Management Symposium, which it is sponsoring at Davos, Switzerland next January. Computers are already widely and some believe outrageously used for credit cards and investigations, Dr. Klaus Schwab, the symposium's Secretary General, told Newsman. Right, okay. I'm going to stop you there again and go a little back. So the Institute added that the question of how much of people's private lives should ethically be computerized. So they're saying, warning, concerns Below professional wiretap is past their heyday. Government and business are threatening you, even though they're the people who represent government and business in many ways. They're threatening you with your privacy is at threat. So we got to work out how much of your privacy we should ethically give them. So they're saying, here you go, look at this threat over here. So how much of the ransom are you going to pay? That's what they're saying. And what's interesting, this another clue you have to this article, and this one Newshound's about. It's looking at a very small article and ripping it apart properly and really seeing what's going on here. Because this is the topics of the first European Management Symposium. That's World Economic Forum, which it is sponsoring. So the International Management Development Institute, the people who are going to be in league with the people who are the threat to your computers, are the are the ones sponsoring Klaus Schwab's Davos event, his first ever of the European Management Symposium that will become the World Economic Forum. It's European Management Symposium for the first couple of years, then European Management Forum until about 1990, and then it's World Economic Forum at the end of the perceived end of the Cold War, if that's marked with Gorbachev and the fall of the Berlin Wall and all that stuff. If that's marked. Now, what's interesting, the first statement that Klaus Schwab makes, computers are already widely and some believe outrageously used for credit cards and investigations. That's a really interesting thing to say already. It's like outrageously used for credit cards and investigations. Why would it be outrageous? But anyway, he pointed out that in Britain, the law requires credit agencies to show dossiers to individuals on request, and that a man can protest against an error. That seems normal, doesn't it? Protest against an error. There's been an error in my credit rating. I want to protest it. Okay, there you go. This is a functioning way for that to happen. Well, Dr. Schwab said that in the US, this is considered absurd. The cardholder has no such right. So straight away, he's like, what? You get to protest an error in the US? This is insane. Why are you letting them be able to say that you've got something wrong? What world is Klaus Schwab living in already? This is 1970. Now he's going to tone down this approach. He's going to eventually get on board with Edelman PR and really work on the wording and the type of way he delivers this shit. And that's what it is. So let's look at something else that is interesting. This same article appears under the title in the Amarillo Globe Times of Texas the day before, so the 26th of August 1970. This appears and says computers pose threat to privacy. Now I'm going to skip, it's got extra sections, but I'm going to skip to the same. This is the same worded by this is the same article as the other American article in every way, but it's published in September the 13th. So the next month, and it's called "Invasions by Computers is Feared by Foreign Business," which is quite intriguing. But the reason why it's easier to read, so I'm going to skip to this one. Now, the difference between the first one and this one, if you notice, a leading European business management school expressed concern, where it's. So move up. A leading school of business management has expressed concern. So there's differences within the way a leading European. So it's already saying, look, it's a European business management school expressed concern last week over the threat by computers to private lives, particularly in the United States. That's added in the American versions to give it context to an American audience. Why am I looking at this crap? That's what the Americans will be saying. And then it says basically the same thing. So it has the same thing, exactly the same wording there. The Institute question ethically, symposium it's sponsoring in the Swiss resort of Davos next January. But this next line is a new line. World-renowned economists such as John Kenneth Galbraith, Barbara Ward, Herman Kahn, and John Ray are among those who are registered so far. Well, as you know, in my second Schwab piece, John Kenneth Galbraith and Herman Kahn are mentors, are really strong mentors of Klaus Schwab. And John Kenneth Galbraith is an extremely influential economist of the past, the teacher of JFK, the man who would serve as JFK's ambassador to India and would have loads of different connections with people, which are just completely astounding. I mean, he is an amazing man to research. And Herman Kahn, the real Dr. Strangelove, both mentioned as people who are going to be like as a selling point to this. But these two men, Herman Kahn, John Kenneth Galbraith, would be a keynote speaker alongside Otto van Habsburg for the first day with joint keynote speakers for the first ever event. And it's extremely interesting. There's another couple of names there, Barbara Ward and Jean Ray. These two people are very interesting. And so it gives us clues. This is why it's important to look in these articles. It gives us clues to what's been going on. And we get back to Klaus Schwab saying about how computers are courageously used for critical so we get to that bit. And again, we get to him saying, this is considered absurd. The card holder has no such right. And there's a new bit afterwards, because in the original bit, it ends there. That's where the article ends. But in this American version, it goes on. He warned that such dossiers can be used to judge qualifications and capability for a new job or to decide promotion. The institute, which is affiliated with the University of Geneva, has worldwide reputation as a training ground for managers of commerce, industry, and banking. Right. Unpack that last bit. Kept out of the version that comes up in the Coventry Evening Telegraph, it says he warned such dossiers. Now, again, I'm wondering who's warning who and who's concerned about what, because it sounds like they're saying this is what we're doing, and these are guys also doing it. We should all be concerned about what we're doing, which seems a little bit nuts. Of course, it seems like the criminals are in charge of the jailhouse, like but he's right. These things could be used to judge qualifications. You know, they're just telling you this. Really, I think they're just seeding this out there. But still, the institute, which is affiliated, so the Institute of the International Management Development Institute, is affiliated with the University of Geneva, somewhere where Klaus Schwab is also heavily affiliated with. I believe he taught there for years, so it's not a surprise that they're involved. But they have a worldwide reputation as a training ground for managers of commerce, industry, and banking. And this is something that Schwab was aiming to do at this time, was from after attending Harvard's Kissinger's international seminar, would be installing leaders of business, management, and politics inside the systems, which is something that was limited here. This project, they say, or at least what they say here, manages commerce, industry, and banking. But this is also, I mean, all of those things were covered with what Klaus Schwab was intending to do, and Henry Kissinger was intended to do, except they were also seeding is a training ground for politicians who could then be seeded into power in their own countries. So this is extremely interesting. That is what the article says, and that's the Corpus Christi Carrier Times version of Texas that I think was well worth a read. So, like I say, there's lots of interesting things to unpack. One of the interesting things that's really worth noting is this business management, the International Management Development Institute, and who they are. So let's have a little look. Here we are on the British Newspaper Archive. And I've saved a couple of articles here where we can have a look. This is one of Keith Gascoigne reporting on the unique International Management Development Institute internationally in the internationally minded city of Geneva. So this article talks about some form of frame of reference or some sort of idea that they are a professional outfit, but a few months before that previous one had come out, the Coventry Evening Telegraph had reported on this international Geneva-based International Management Development Institute in their newspaper, and under the title "Communists Out to Make a Profit." The Soviet Union has decided to set up its own chain of American-style schools, and dedicated communists will be taught that their main task is to make a profit. Not only is that dirty capitalist word mentionable in the Soviet Union now, but in a new East-West breakthrough, the Russians have decided to send a team to Geneva-based International Management Development Institute with its feet firmly planted in the camp of free enterprise. About 30 Russian managers are expected later this year at the center's d'études industrial. So d'études hasn't got an apostrophe there. D'études. So the of the study of industry on International Business School for Top Management. Of course, ideologically, the Russians don't accept the profit motive, said the center's director, Bohdan Horoshlin. Oh my God. But from the point of view, he didn't say, oh my God, I said that about his name. But from the point of view of efficiency and decision making, they have realized that they must take profitability into account. This is fantastically interesting how the Soviets were being taught this American style of stuff, which goes along the lines of this infiltration. This is the next step across, not just like what they were doing, where they implant leaders into countries to have more American aligned thinkers in power, so that if communism come in, you've got some form of safeguard, or if so communist thinking, more communist minded people are trying to push their propaganda out there, then they will find it harder because there's some sort of resistance to it, because there's already American aligned leaders in power. This is what the idea was for it, and this is a perfect example of that. So again, this international Management Development Institute was very interesting and is the sponsor of the first Davos. Isn't that interesting? These guys who are teaching communists how to make a profit, innocent enough, isn't it? Give Russians American ideology. Is that it seems exactly like what we've seen over and over again through the history of Russia. They've been adapted the prevailing powers from another place. So here we go. There you go. That's the first editions there of Klaus Schwab, or the first mentions of Klaus Schwab in the British newspaper archive and the some of the local American newspapers. And they mention him in relation to this International Management Institute. And it is very interesting and intriguing because obviously these sort of like organizations were set up to seed other things. And so like the CIA conduits who were funding Kissinger's international seminar, they are the bridge from the CIA to Harvard, but they're the conduit, and they're pretty important in themselves because they've got a history. They've got a fake organization behind them. They've been set up with this idea, with CIA money, with this idea of how to seed certain people into certain areas of either business, government, industry, etc. So these are really interesting times as well. But let's skip across now. So let's talk about the Coventry Telegraph. So the Coventry Telegraph, which was called Coventry Evening Telegraph and then became Coventry Telegraph, is in 2006. I might have said 2008, but it's 2006. Well, it was gobbled up in 1997 by the Trinity Mirror group, which eventually became Reach. So this is one of the many papers that got swallowed up by the Trinity Mirror group, which eventually became Reach. And Reach PLC are extremely interesting, as you see here, um, known as Trinity Mirror between 1999 and 2018, and then they rebranded their name. But basically, Reach have 240 regional papers, including like the Coventry Telegraph, but they also have national papers like the Daily Mirror, the Sunday People, the Daily Express, Sunday Express, Daily Star on Sunday, the Scottish Daily Record, and the Sunday Mail, OK Magazine, as well as a couple other things. So this is they got a massive voice. They are a modern company that is really focused on taking in owning a lot of different newspaper brands, and so what that gives them. That gives them the power to seed stories and seed narratives and do all of that stuff, and it is amazing. So I thought to myself when I saw them, when I was looking at the Coventry Evening Telegraph, the Coventry Telegraph, and then I saw they were owned by Reach, and I was like, who are this Reach guys? And this is where Newshound is meant to go. It's meant to go into another place. So the hound follows the scent, so wherever the scent does go. So the first part is kind of a separate. That was the first appearance of Klaus Schwab in a newspaper. But then when I was looking at this Reach, I noticed that on their Wikipedia page, and I don't use Wikipedia often. I do check it because you really do have to check. Sometimes they got good sources, sometimes the sources are dead links, so dirty. And sometimes in the history, you've got sources that have been deleted and things that have been deleted that then have traceable links as well. Not a lot of people know about the history of Wikipedia, the history of each page, but you can find everything from loads of information to redactions, like legal redactions where things have been taken out due to court orders or due to real dangerous information that they do not want out. And some people who are really interested have loads of stuff removed about them. But still, that's not what their point is on this one. But I was looking at their chairman of the board, and I was like, oh, look at this, Nicholas Prettyjohn, and look at this CEO, Jim Mullen. Why don't they have Wikipedia pages? He's the chairman of Reach. It's going to take 280 papers at least, and that's massive. They're on the London Stock Exchange. Their revenue is 600. What was that? 615.8 million in 2021. That's a load of money. Surely he should have his own Wikipedia page. Surely he's probably done a few things. And Jim Mullen, their CEO, right? Why doesn't he have his own page either? Something you notice a lot with Wikipedia, to be honest, that they do this sort of thing. So I thought I'd go and look at Prettyjohn, little Prettyjohn. Here we go. Let's go check little Prettyjohn. That wasn't meant to be an Indian accent, but it surely did sound like an Indian accent. Nicholas Edward Tucker Prettyjohn. Now, this is interesting, isn't it? Because look, he's the chairman of Reach, and now in 2022, he become the non-executive director of YouGov. So they go, they sample, they take all of the information, they tell you, they carefully word their surveys at YouGov, and then they print them in the newspapers as though they're facts. And that's what they do. So they're all in control of all of it. That's not independence. So this guy who's overreach, Prettyjohn Overreach, Nicholas, is his name Nicholas? Yeah, Nicholas Overreach Prettyjohn is the chairman of Reach and the non-executive director at YouGov. So what they can make up the stats and they can tell you the stats. He also was director of the Bank of England, chairman of TSV. I mean, these guys, they're just oh my god, they're awful. That's not his picture, by the way. That's just a stock photo that market screeners stick up there. But yeah, that's really interesting. YouGov and Reach. So I thought, oh well, that's not a surprise. So here we go. Here's the LinkedIn of Jim Mullen, who's Chief Executive Officer at Reach PLC. And there's something very interesting here. Look at this. So he went to Harvard Business School as well. Ooh, that's interesting. And he was part of Racehorse Media Group and Ladbrokes. For years, he worked for Ladbrokes. Ladbrokes Coral, which that was the merger, the company, which was the result of a merger between Ladbrokes and Coral, two betting shop franchises. And before that, he was William Hill, and before that, News International, Rupert Murdoch. Oh my God, director of product management and director of digital strategy. This guy has got all of the jobs, hasn't he? What's interesting here is that eventually he become the head of what is essentially Trinity Mirror. And what I found extremely interesting was this article about Ladbroke staff raped and killed as firm saves millions of pounds by forcing staff to work alone. Now, you might not know this, but Ladbroke staff have been raped and killed and etc. And this was from 2016. And it mentions Jim Mullen in it. There he is. Jim Mullen insisted health and safety was non-negotiable, except for the fact when it saves money, so that and results in the rape and murder of your staff, Jim. Chief Executive Jim Mullen admitted to the tribunal that there were serious systematic failures in the operation of Ladbroke's health and safety processes, particularly in respect to staff training, efficacy, and blah, 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 blah. But he insisted the suggestion I had put profits before lives is bunkum. Health and safety is part of non-negotiable part of business. That bullshit. The bullshit he speaks. The bullshit he speaks as he's head of what was Trinity Mirror, when the Mirror was Trinity Mirror, which it still is, and still part of Reach. So you mention him in the Mirror. A couple of years later, he's running the Mirror. That's interesting, isn't it? I find it interesting personally. Maybe you don't find it interesting at all. Who knows? I don't know. And to be perfectly honest, this second part was just an interesting trail to go down. So there you go. An episode of Newshound for you. I'm going to go away and drink this. There's no ice left in it. I might put some more ice in it. And I will leave you with two thoughts. The thought that Klaus Schwab's first mention is in the British newspaper archives is a very interesting one, and though isn't a story in itself, may have a load of evidence for loads of different stories. And when you analyze it, as analyzing always does, it brings up so much more and gives you leads and links and ideas of where to look about something else. And you know, without articles like that, I wouldn't have been able to note down John Kenneth Galbraith and Herman Kahn as repeating themes. I wouldn't be able to see other things. You know, it's very interesting. It's also very interesting how those are translated through the world of mass printed media back then. It's very you get information like this institute, this management institute sponsoring the first Davos, and it's very interesting to see the concern that they talk about is actually kind of things that they're creating. You know, there's so much to unpack from just a very short article. This is why Newshound, I think, is going to be a fantastic little project, because that's just from one little article. You really break things down, you really look at them, and you're like, wow, everything has been laid out in front of me, and I have only just been able to see it properly. You know, a lot of the articles that come out now, today in the modern mass media, whether it be online or in printed form, a lot of those articles are going to be tainted with current politics, current feeling, current narrative creation, current ideas, current philosophies, current ideology. You know, it's all going to be current. In the past, you know, society has moved on, and we no longer live within that paradigm, and you're able to see the reason why everything was written down much more clearly. You can see why all of these things led to here so much better, because we understand we're so much more separated from the ideology, the philosophy, the things that give you passion and also give you a mist over your eyes, stop you seeing things for what they really are, and at the time can see you defend things that later on you'll go, I don't even know why I did that. I just don't know why I did that. Well, it's because you get whipped up at the time, whipped up at the time. Those articles would make people excited at the time about this coming new project and this coming new world, and they would think that these business management schools and Klaus Schwab and the like were defending their rights to privacy, not selling them away. You know, in time, we know something different that I find interesting. So, for me, Johnny Vedmore, and from the second edition of Newshound, I am so glad you joined me, and I thank you very much. And I will continue drinking my pink gin, and I will say, Auf Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen, as Schwab would say. Klaus Schwab, what an arsehole.
What we know is that we will end up with many more unemployed.